Hi, Andre, and hi, Rebecca.
Unmuted.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Manthan over here.
Well, thanks for joining us. I think we might be a little bit early. We're still waiting for one or two people.
Muted.
If you can maybe just go into the chat or questions so we can just see that that those that are there can hear us. Okay, great. Let's start. Thank you very much for joining us. And today we're going to discuss. I just want to double check here. Manthan, are we recording this? Yes. Good. I just want to make sure that we are. So yeah, thanks for joining us. And we're going to go through. Just get all the things working here. Technology challenged at the moment with all the right. Okay, we're going to cover unstructured dynamic event-based processes, demonstrating the use of the latest version of XMPro. We've done quite a lot of work around handling dynamic or unstructured work, and today I'd like to try and explain to you what it's for and why we've built it this way and how it can benefit you, and we'll do that through the examples that Manthan's going to take you through in terms of how we actually structure this and how it is useful. So before we start with that, I just want to give you a quick background to structured and unstructured, what we call structured or unstructured work. And essentially the one is event-based, the other one's workflow-based. And this all came about, well, we've always known that work is not always we can't always predefine exactly how things are going to happen. Sometimes we need to act dynamically, and that's where things like email and that has been really great. But it has caused the way change in the way that we work. We work from a very in the past. When I started working, we had brown envelopes that would be delivered every day to us at a certain time, and that's my mail. I would sort through that, and then I have opportunity to work. With email these days, we're a lot more interrupt-driven. That means there's signals coming in all the time, especially emails and sort of things that will make me stop, do what I'm doing right now, and then I carry on with. I do some work on emails or whatever the case may be. Then I jump back. So the way that people work has changed dramatically, going from a very sequential type approach to a lot more interrupt-driven, and through that. There's also been a recognition that a lot of processes are actually a lot more suited to a dynamic way of working, a lot more collaborative way of working, and that with the because we have so much contextual knowledge of the processes that we work with. So, for example, sales processes or whatever the case might be, we know some contextual knowledge about that. So we get an email, and based on that email, I want to make certain decisions, or I read something in the newspaper, or whatever it is that influences my decision, or how I approach a process. That I don't want to follow a very rigid or structured approach. And I'll explain with some examples as we get into this as well. So, question that we have is: your process tools that you currently use, are they workflow-based, structured, or can they accommodate what we refer to as unstructured work? Now, this 80% is actually something that Janelle Hill at Gartner came up with, and when we exhibited at the, we were sponsors at the Gartner BPM Summit, I had a chat to Janelle, and we also had a vendor briefing opportunity after that. And there's been a big recognition, if I can call it that, from Gartner to say, you know what, not everything, the whole world is not workflowable or workflow based. There's actually a huge component that is ad hoc process routing, and they're starting to move to something where they say you should actually do by design, design by doing rather than do by design. So instead of trying to get this whole process better down, fully mapped out with all the rules and all the options and all the exceptions, you should start looking at just design by doing. So put these things in, and that's always been the approach of what XMPro is all about. So at the actual Gartner conference, the big sign that we have had up at our stand is, well, this is how you used to do it, and the Susie, Lucy, whatever sort of analogy or the tattoo on the arm, and at some point in time you're going to realize, well, you actually need something where there's no, that you have a container of processes or activities and that you route them sequentially. And once again, I'll get back. But we've got some great examples which in actual fact, operations manager Andri, sort of the analogy that she uses to sort of distinguish between the two. So I'm just going to share these two quick videos with you. This is actually one by Visa, as far as I can remember, and it shows a very structured approach around how things work, and there's no exceptions. Everyone follows, and everything works very efficient, very controlled. This is an ad that Visa runs here in Australia at the moment. But then there's an exception. And these very structured workflow-based processes are not always designed to handle all the exceptions. And then life carries on. Now, there are requirements for those sort of processes in organizations, and XMPro can handle that. So you can build structured processes or very rigid processes, if I can call it that, where you need a certain compliance, you need that flow to go the way that it did in that one. The other example which I have is, I'm going to just want to mute the sound on this one because it makes a lot of noise. But this is the food court or the food mall example. Where in the previous one it was a canteen model. It was almost a factory style, what we refer to as factory style. And with a food court model, there's multiple options that you can do. I still do the same thing. I go and eat. But every day I can go to a different food stall in a different way. There are still only a certain number of predefined events or activities in this whole thing. So there's only a certain number of places I can go, a certain number of things that I do, and certain things that they serve up. But every single day I can choose to do this differently. So where it goes from the canteen model, where everyone stands in the same queue, follows the same line, eats the same food every single day, the high level of consistency, to the more food court or in a shopping mall type scenario where there's multiple options and every single day I can do this differently. So that's the analogy that Andri came up with, and I really thought it was a good example or good demonstration to show that the two different ways. The end result, both are around getting something to eat, but they're two very different ways of approaching that. So with that, XMPro handles, so you can just create what we call a process container for this unstructured work, which is like the food court model, and now we have a whole lot of these options that you can route dynamically. Now, and when we show you the actual software, and Mantan will take you through the demonstration, it actually shows you how you can assign these dynamically very quickly. So when I discover a new process or new activity within a process, I can just drag and drop that on, so I can take a new one, drag it on, and then link it up very quickly without coding things at the back end. So that is really the opportunity that we have with unstructured work. Now, there are two very different approaches. On the one hand, we've got where the flows are very well defined, they're pre-modeled, and exceptions are limited. On the other hand, exceptions are the rule. Every single business process is essentially different. It's got its own unique context, it's got its own unique reason why it is there, and every single time that you do a process, for example, a customer onboarding or something like that, the activities remain the same, but the sequence in which you're going to do them will differ based on information that you have or the contextual approach of that. So it's really 80-20. The nice thing with XMPro is we can actually handle both. In actual fact, we can handle both of them in one single process, and we call this our business orchestra. XMPro is essentially a business orchestration software solution, or boss. So you can let your whole business be run by the XMPro boss. You only need one boss that can handle both the structured and unstructured side, and sometimes you even have them inside the same process. So it might even be in the same one. So what we call factory style, or that canteen one, where the requirements for those, and in many organizations, and that's where workflow and BPM initially had its roots, that's where it started, you have very strict control requirements, things like purchase order approvals or something like that. There's really strict compliance built into that. You'll find a lot of that these days are actually done inside ERP solutions or line of business application. You'll find a lot of workflow based or factory style requirements built into those platform things. So they can handle that. The nice thing with that is it will give you incremental process improvement. So I can run faster. Where with the key reason for, once again, using that is consistency and compliance. You want to make sure that every single transaction happens in exactly the same way and that it's compliant. And it's really all about sequencing. It's all about making sure, and that's why it's workflow based. It wants to make sure that we follow the right sequence. On the other hand, with knowledge style, when we've got people who know stuff, and based on what they know, they want to route things on an ad hoc basis, and they want to do it on a case-by-case approach. With those, you can have dramatic process improvements. Instead of having emails and all sorts of things fly around and do work outside, we bring those controls into the process management, and we can create some. It's all event based, so we have a whole lot of events that you can do within an activity or in a process. So we'll say a process like customer onboarding is a process container, and inside that we're going to have a whole lot of things like, and we'll actually show you opportunity management, where if a salesperson brings in a new opportunity and the value is more than $50,000 and it's a new client and it's new technology, there's certain rules that's going to dictate that it has to go a certain route. If not, then they can still make a decision on what they want to do. Do they want to send it for credit checking? Do I want to involve? Do I want to get technical guys involved? Or whatever the case might be. So you can then elect what components you use. So that's almost a case-by-case approach. That salesperson will know, based on current economic conditions, that we'd like to do a credit check on this company because I read something in the newspaper. That's contextual knowledge, and based on that, there's certain things that I want to do. That is orchestration as well, rather than sequencing. It's like the conductor in an orchestra. There's certain critical elements that you want to call at certain points in time to make sure that this whole thing works properly and work together. So what are typical of these sort of things? Things like sales opportunities, onboarding, specifically in sales management. Sales processes tend to be quite ad hoc. Customer onboarding, those sort of things. On customer service, once again, help desks, and a lot of it is also based on cases. So anything that's got a case, incident, legal, and there's example of one of our clients who do funeral arrangement processes, which are also, there's no sequential logic in terms of capturing the initial case data and make up to the point where there's almost a lockdown or deadline, and after that the logistical processes require that things stay structured, but the first part of that process is very fluid, and it's really based, there's 10 different options that you can do, and it's really based on what the feedback from the customer that you can do. Any incident management, whether it is engineering, whether it's quality assurance, whether it's HR related, whether anything, whether it's disciplinaries, whether it's as I said, complaints handling in quality management, or anything like that. And in the legal world, that's all built around cases. So cases are on a case-by-case basis. Some of the other examples in engineering, for example, engineer to order, there's a lot of collaboration between marketing, sales, procurement, engineering guys, and at some point in time, once everyone's established all the requirements, which is a very fluid process, you can actually get back into a structured process of getting the new BOM or bill of materials that was created into the ERP solution. Handling things like concessions and all sorts of things like that, once again in engineering environments, very, very key use of or key example of dynamic processes. The one that we're going to focus on is really the opportunity management, when Mantan shows you the software on how we're going to do that. So in the XMPro demo, what we're going to show you is, first of all, this whole dynamic allocation approach, how we do that. So that 80% of processes that we can handle, or the 80% of processes have collaborative components or dynamic allocation components in them, and that's what we'll show you. We'll show you how we set that up. We're going to show you how we use case files for a quick find of information, and what we call fast fields. It's for even quicker deployment. So the way that you build forms in XMPro, in the latest version of XMPro, it's all around getting things built quicker, faster, with a lot more agility. So it leaves you the opportunity to change things quickly, add new activities that you may discover fairly quickly. So let me just find my screen again. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Mantan, who's going to take you through. I'll also do some of the talking and explain some of the concepts, but I'm going to hand you over to Mantan to take you through the actual software. That's not him there. That's just us really having a good time building this and showing it to you.
Thank you, Peter. All right. I think we now want to take a look at various things that Peter just touched upon right now. So I'll quickly go into the presentation. Hold on. I just need to. Okay, now this is my actual user interface that everyone will log into to use the processes that you design. Now, as Peter had mentioned that in the opportunity management, we have a business rule to decide where a process needs to continue, whether it needs to go to a bid committee, depending on various parameters. So I'll quickly show you what those, how those business rule, where that business rule is. So in our XM designer, this is the designer interface where you actually design the processes and the business rules. The way you go to the
Just go back to that screen and just show us quickly where the business rule, just some of the elements of the business rule before from a user interface.
yes. In the user interface, what we've, as Peter was asking to show you, show where we can see the actual business rules in the business interface, in the user interface. So in this particular opportunity management process, what we have designed is a business rule to route to a bid committee, and the business rule is based on whether it's a new customer, and if it's a new segment, a new technology, and the opportunity value is greater than 50,000. So I will quickly just show you the implementation of the business rule.
Unmuted.
So I just asked Mantan to quickly unmute me so I can just make a comment there. The purpose of that, Mantan, if you can maybe just go back to that screen. We're using two different screens here. So it's opportunity management. The example, it's actually something that was built for a client where if it's a new customer, then or it's a new technology that we've never used, or the value is more than $50,000, then in that instance, we'd actually like to go to a bid committee. So that's the whole concept behind the business rule. So you see there's, if it's a new market segment, if we've never worked in oil and gas or whatever the case might be, it might be a risk. If there's new technology that we've never used, that might be a risk. And if the value is above a certain threshold. So sometimes, even though we allow people a lot of flexibility, and we'll show you on the right-hand side this button,
with the dynamic allocation later on in the presentation. There will be more buttons that appear, but as Mantan types us in, you see right now, that bid committee, I cannot do anything else. That checkbox is checked for me because it's a new client, it's in a new sector, it is new technology that we've never used, and the value is more than $50. That is one component, and Mantan's just going to show you how we put that business rule together before we get back in and show you how the dynamic allocation works. Because business rules are still a key part of dynamic allocation. You still need control. You can't just let people do things any which way they want. There are certain instances where you need to invoke certain rules and make sure that it happens in a certain way. So that's the reasoning for having the business rule with the dynamic allocation.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks, Peter.
So I'll show you where to look at the business rules. So this is my designer interface where you're going to design the processes and also set up your business rules. So the way to go to business rules in the visit tab, there is this business rule ribbon bar. So where you go into the business rule, I have categories that are there that we have created. Now, this is the business rule that we have created, and I'll quickly just show you inside the business rule. So here we have a couple of things. I'll just unmute Peter so that I don't hear an echo.
Muted.
Okay. Okay, great. Here we have a couple of things in the business rule. We have defined two variables. This is the value that comes from the user. So that's the actual value, the opportunity value that the user types in, and we've kept it the threshold as at 50,000. And also we have another risk assessment variable. We specify our risk as 60%, and this is our business rule. I'll just go into the business rule, and we take certain parameters like values such as the new customer, new segment, new technology, and the deal value, which is the user-defined ones, and we return a risk to the user. And what we specify is that if the deal value is greater than the risk, is greater than 50,000, then we are going to say our risk is already 50%. Otherwise, it is 20. And then we add an additional information onto the risk by saying if it's a new customer, then if it's not a new customer, just add 10, otherwise add 20, and so on and so forth. And we have rules for the new segment and new technology. So as you saw in the actual process opportunity management screen over here, I specified that, okay, this XMPro company is a new customer for us. We are going into a new segment, new technology, and the opportunity value is 50,000. So the business rule gets validated, and it tells that, hey, you need to go to a bid committee for additional processes. And there are other things that are specified over here. And in here, as you said, we have certain user feature enhancements, the UI. So if it's a very long form, you can spread it across tabs. So we have various tabs over here. And in this opportunity questions, you can answer certain questions. You can add those questions and update the CRM database with that. Upload certain documents over here. There are supporting documents that you want to upload if required. And as soon as I hit process form, because the business rule is saying it needs to go to bid committee, you will see that, okay, it is routed to a bid committee, and Bruce Anderson needs to do the work for the bid committee that is required. Now, this is our structured process that is there. And also, we will, this particular interface, process when you design, you just design once and you see it in various user interfaces. For example, I see the same actual activity in my Outlook view, and in my web view that is there. Okay. And
unmuted.
I just asked Nansan to unmute this for 1 second as well. Just what is that interface that is showing with the in Outlook, you'll see the same buttons appear. You'll see the same buttons appear there, and we have a similar if you go to the team site in SharePoint. Those buttons are built dynamically. So in the next phase, where Nansan is going to take you through putting the dynamic processes together, you'll see when we build that, it actually adds that same functionality, the same dynamic allocation into the various front ends. And as you can see, there's the same form in SharePoint, Outlook, and the web. So he's not going to show you how to do the dynamic allocation of those buttons that's on the right-hand side, and at the top you have SharePoint. Great.
Muted.
Thanks, Peter. So as Peter had touched upon that, it's a single, you build it once and you surface it in multiple interfaces. So the next thing that I want to show you is how to do the dynamic allocation. There are scenarios where I want to do certain steps, but the business rule might say that you're not required to do those steps. For example, I want to do a credit check on a customer, and how do I go about doing that? So I'll quickly show you in the design interface of how to do the dynamic allocation. So you log on to the designer, open the activity, and when you go to the properties tab for that particular activity, which is the capture an opportunity, there is this option called as dynamic allocation. Now what this is going to do is allow you to quickly route users to various activities. So over here I'm going to say that, okay, I want to do a credit check. So I just say credit check, and I can also say that, okay, I also want to allow to do a quote. And you would also see that I can specify due dates and activation dates for each of these activities. So you can tell, you can define rules saying that, okay, the credit check has to be done within a week. So all those can be defined. So I will save that information, and if I refresh this particular screen, now you see the credit check and the create code comes up over here. Now if I go into the various other interfaces like the SharePoint, you see the credit check and the create code, and also if I refresh the Outlook interface, I also see that those buttons have appeared in my Outlook interface as well. So let's go ahead and do this activity. So this is my IBM company, which we've done business before, and we know that, okay, they are in some financial strain right now. Well, not that IBM is in one, but I just want to make sure that I want to do a credit check. So I just go about giving certain required information for this particular activity. There are certain questions that I've answered. There are no certain documents that are there, and I'm going to say, okay, can you do me a credit check for this? And you would see that, okay, it says that this is required, a credit check is required, and it goes to a finance group. So if I go to the finance group, and I'll just log in as Chris, who is our finance manager. And over here, you would see in his group tasks, since he's in the finance group, he has a task that he needs to do for the credit check. and yes, and over here he can also view what's happening in the particular task. And the other thing that is there in our user interfaces, we've added some enhancements. So this is the task view for Chris Moore, and he can easily filter and arrange these by dragging certain columns across and say that, okay, I want to drag with the name, and I want to drag sort it on version numbers as well, and that way he can easily filter his record set if it's too large, and gets a smart navigation capability for that particular task. Now I'm just going to go ahead and assign this. So now Chris Moore is able to do a credit check. Now this credit check, the way we can also hook up with external web services like the Dun & Bradstreet financial services to convert currencies. So I'm going to do is I want to convert it from Australian dollars, from US dollars in fact, to Australian dollars. And you would see that
Unmuted.
I'll Manthan to unmute me. Just what you're seeing with that process that is showing there, typically on a credit check or something like that, you would use a Dun & Bradstreet service where you bring back credit ratings or things like that. This is a real-time example of using a web service. The fact that we're just using one that currently does conversion of US dollars to Australian dollars. In this example, we may have underwriting that comes out of the US or something like that, and in order to do that, the amount will have to be approved. In actual fact, it's probably the other way around, Manthan, you want to say. You want to use, just to show that this is a real-time service, it's going to change it around from Australia, so it's 40,000 Australian dollars, which is $39,000. Last week it was 45,000 US dollars. So yeah. If you want to use external web services, this is just a live example of using a web service like that. And he's going to show you there's documentation that's now associated with this, which is the case files that have come across with this.
Okay.
Muted.
Great. Thanks, Peter. So also we had mentioned that you can quickly view the various documents or the navigation of files that are attached to this process. So there can be many files that are attached within a various process, and how do you get to it? So the way you get to it is over here you have this case files button, and you click that case files button, and it shows up a view of all the documents that were attached at every step of the process. And this in fact also can be surfaced from a SharePoint list if you've uploaded your documents to SharePoint or to the actual workspace. And you can over here, since we're using the same navigational grid, I can also start arranging and filtering the documents by dragging and dropping the columns. And also the other things that I can do is I can rearrange them by saying, okay, I want the user over here and I want the attachment to show up over here. I can also start doing filtering like the Excel filtering, and this filtering does not need to be start with, so I just say I want to do it for Miller. It shows up over here, and it allows you to have a quick view of all the documents that are attached to the process at any given point of time. The next thing that we're going to show you is the fast fields, or the wizards of how to go about doing the fast fields definitions. So I'm just going to go into my task list and see what is there for me to do. Okay, now this is a create quote form that a task that I was required to do for a company called North Face, and this process is still fluid. It's not completely defined yet, and I want to add certain information to this actual process activity. How do I go about doing that? It's very straightforward. So again, for this I log into my design interface, which is the designer, go into the activity in question. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to add the company name over here. So I'm going to drag a reference label, call it company name, and give it a sensible name. And the way to do the fast forms is the following. Now, when this is disabled, when this click enable script IDE option is unchecked, you are in the visit mode. So when I double click this reference label, and it allows me to specify what information I want to surface in this reference label. Now I want to get the company name from a previous activity that was completed initially. So I'm going to say, okay, reference the company name. So, and I'm going to save that information. And when I refresh this, you see the company name comes across. And it's very straightforward to create easy, simple forms. And if you are a technical person and you want to do some integration, once you've got this form filled in, you enable the script IDE and you double click that object and it shows the script IDE for you. And that way, if you want to do complex coding, you can go about doing that coding as well. Now, the one more thing that I wanted to show you, which I'll see if I have, is the browse page information. So I'll quickly turn up another interface of ours, and while Peter is just getting that site, a cloud site up, I'm just going to show you what it does. Thanks, Peter. And just going to show you in my procurement process. And while I'm demonstrating that, I'll just enable Peter's audio so that he can background information on that.
Just one point while Mantan's going into this. This is actually a cloud-based site, so if you want to run XMPro out of the cloud, quite easy. Your design interface will sit in your desktop, and you can, as you can see, this is something that sits in the cloud. That you, once again, this is just a simple example of the typical processes, but you can have your processes hosted in the cloud as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. I'll quickly unmute him.
Muted.
Okay, now as you can see on my interface here, the cloud site that we have, it's just a stock requisition process where I want to get certain information from my inventory system, which might be sitting in an external database or some other interface. So I'm just going to try to do the okay. Okay. So as you can see, I'm just getting information from my external inventory system, which is giving me the various stock items that are there. And this is the same grid, navigational grid, that we have in our user interface, which is in the task action list, in my tracking list, and in my archive list. And it's very helpful in the tracking and archive because that can get very huge and it becomes easy for you to arrange them. So I can say, okay, I want to order them on stock and price. So I want to first order them on price, then on stock code, and then on description, and I go ahead and get that information across. And as you can see, it neatly arranges them, and I can get the information onto my forms pretty easily. So that's the demonstration, and I'll just pass it on to Pieter if anyone has any question and answers. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Montan. So yeah, the whole objective of one of the key things, as he's shown there, we've enhanced the capability of the browse pages to also include the quick navigation or finding it. Now, you may sort this by price or whatever the case might be. So if I just type in seed, oops, there's no set. There's nothing that's set, but you'll find that there's it contains, and it'll bring back bicycle seed, for example. So it's quite easy to find huge volumes of data, and that's one of the key changes that we've also made with the latest version, so that you've got the ability to find information a lot quicker and a lot easier. So Montan took you through the whole design approach. One thing I just wanted to mention on that specific approach, so if I double click on this, this is a process container. There's a whole set of activities and events and things that I can add to this. I don't have to draw the flow. I don't have to draw the arrows onto this. If I want to add a new activity, I can literally just drag a new activity on and start including that in my dynamic allocation. So as soon as I drag something on, I can specify the properties for that, so I can set up properties for that, and then I can include that new activity for this when I set up the dynamic allocation. So I can now tell this activity that you can see this one. So as you can see, it's really flexible. It really gives you the opportunity to very quickly give just go back to the front screen here. So I want to do a task, create new opportunity. Very quickly you can add new buttons on the side here, and as Montan showed you, in actual fact, when you refresh this one here, that just means it started when you refreshed it, it wanted to push the parameters through, so it thought it was posting. But you can add new, let me just quickly go back to process viewer. Didn't load up on this one, I just need to check on that. But you can very quickly add new buttons or dynamic allocation just by dragging and dropping new elements onto the onto your canvas or this process container, what we call a process container, rather than a structured workflow. So I hope that gave you some insight into what dynamic processes are, and you can think about the ones that just want to get this one running. Okay. You can see the opportunity that may exist within your clients or in your organization, of where you can apply this, so you can quickly bring in new elements like a new activity, or just leave or just create the flexibility so that people can route things on a dynamic basis. With that, thank you very much. If there's any questions, we can stay on for a few minutes. If there's any questions, if you can type them through, we can answer them. Otherwise, thank you for your time. We'll just see if there's anything coming through. We're going to stop the recording in any case, and look out for our next webinar.